What do banks do to become wealthy? In this episode, I'm going to teach you how to become your own banker and do what the banks and credit unions and major financial institutions do to create wealth. I'm Doug Andrew. I've been a financial strategist for 47 years, and I've taught a lot of audiences and many readers of my books and on my video, my national radio show, about the dynamics of money. And this is a common question, a topic I love to talk about, how to become your own banker and do what the banks, credit unions, and other financial institutions do. Now, basically, there are three things that you can do with money. You can spend it, you can lend it, or you can own with it. I guess you could give it away, but spend, lend, or own. Now, a lot of times when I say that, people go, well, okay, I know how to spend it. Yet too many people spend too much of their money instead of living on less than what they earn and saving. But when you own with it, that sounds like, well, that's the best. Let's own with it. I want to own my home. I want to own these stocks. I want to own my business. Yeah, that's great. But they think that money in a lended position isn't as good. Actually, this is what makes the world go round. When people say, Doug, what do you do with your money? I double dip, okay? I own and I loan on the same money simultaneously. So let's back up and simplify this. Whenever you or I, if we were to put our money into a bank, or a credit union, or even a life insurance company, it's in a lended position. Now, are they just a benevolent institution paying you interest? No. What are they doing with that money that you're loaning them? Because when you put your money in a savings account or even a checking account, they get to use that money while it's in there. And they get to count that. They can use the velocity of that money. It's OPM, which means other people's money. And this is what makes the world go round in the parable of the talents in the Bible, Matthew chapter 25, and Luke 19 talks about the parable of the pounds. What you're trying to do is use a win-win scenario between someone who's paying interest and someone who's earning interest, but you create a win-win. So if I put my money in a bank or a credit union, they're paying me interest, my money is being loaned to them, and what are they doing with my money? They're going out and investing it or loaning it out again, let's say at 5%. So let's do the math. From 2000 to 2020, in that 20-year period, most banks and credit unions were only paying a pathetic 1 or 2% interest on the average. So every million they borrow from us, if we collectively passed a hat around and we deposited $1 million in the bank, it's in a lended position. And they're paying us $10,000 to $20,000 of annual interest on that. But they're turning right around and loaning that back out again at 5 to 10%. So if they're borrowing at 1 and they're loaning out at 5, that looks like it's 5 times, right? It's not just 4%. I mean, sometimes I've heard financial advisors say, you'll do all that for 1 or 2 or 3 or 4%. Well, banks sure do it. They'll pay $10,000 and make $50,000. They'll pay $20,000, 2% interest, and they'll make 10%. They'll make $100,000. How much more is $500,000? Okay, then $100,000. How much more is $50,000 than $10,000? It's 500% more. This is what banks and credit unions do. Now, many of them in 2008, when the economy was really hurting and a lot of people lost up to 40%, do you know the federal government asked the 5 major banks where they had their money, their tier 1 assets for liquidity and safety? Do you know where it was? In bank-owned life insurance contracts, in insurance companies, because insurance companies are a $1 trillion industry. They're the backbone of America and the backbone of the world. So, see, banks were borrowing our money at 1% and they're putting it into insurance companies and earning 5%. They don't even use the index strategies that I use, that I teach in my books. So would you hire an employee for $10,000 that made you an extra $50,000? That's what the banks have been doing. They've been making 500%. Now they have overhead costs and so forth, but that's what banks do. you can do the same thing. You can have interest work for you, because I've heard a lot of people quip, well, there's two kinds of people in the world, those that pay interest and those that earn interest. And I go, no, there's a third kind of person in the world. Those who are super mega wealthy and savvy, they learn when it's wise to pay interest to make more interest. Nobody looks at a bank like they're evil. They pay interest to make more interest. That's what the mega wealthy multimillionaires and billionaires do. They pay lower interest and make higher interest. So they're willing to borrow and pay a lower rate and make a higher rate. That's called an arbitrage or a spread. It's what makes the world go round. So I own assets. I own my house. But on my house, if I borrow money on a mortgage and it's 3% interest and it's tax deductible, it's only a net cost of 2. And in my laser fund portfolio, I make 10. How much more is 10 than 2? It's 500%. The banks have been making 500%. I've been making 500%. But this is how you can become your own banker. Let me give you a little secret. When I share this with audiences, they sit there with this deer in the headlight look. So I'll just go so far with this. But see, banks, credit unions, insurance companies, they borrow our money. When we put money in those institutions, it's in a lended position. Now, whenever I go to use the money in my insurance contract, what I call the laser fund, I can borrow my own money or I can withdraw it. If I withdraw it, it's no longer there to earn interest. That's the dumb way. The smart way is if I want to go withdraw, instead of withdrawing, borrow $100,000 or $1 million. I borrow it out and they'll charge me 2% interest because I don't want to pay tax on it. And the IRS says you do not have to pay tax on loan proceeds. So by changing the nomenclature to borrowing, I borrow out $100,000, I borrow out $1 million, and the insurance company charges me 2%. So on $1 million, that'd be 20 grand. But they'll turn around and credit me 2% on that money that I borrowed. If I borrowed out $1 million, they're going to pay me $20,000. So they pay me $20,000 and they charge me $20,000. It's a wash. But do you know what? Many times they'll give me the choice. If I borrow it out, they might charge me 5%, but they cap it. It's no higher than 5. But if they can charge me 5% or $50,000, they'll continue to credit me whatever the index earns that year. There are many years I've earned 10%. So I borrow and they charge me on $1 million, $50,000, but they credit me $100,000. I made an extra $50,000 net while I was using my money for other purposes. Do you know in 2017, many of our clients following these strategies borrowed money at 5% on $1 million, that's 50 grand, but they made 25% that year on the money, even though they were using it for business purposes. So they made $250,000 minus the 50, that's a net of 20% or $200,000. That's what smart, savvy people do. See, you're able to own and loan on the same asset. When I own a home or a commercial building, the reason why I will use a mortgage is because I can borrow the money, let's say at 3%. If I borrow at 6%, tax deductible, it's a net cost of 4, and many times in my lifetime, I've earned at least 8% on my laser funds. How much more is 8 than 4? It's 100%. See, I'm owning a house or a property, and I'm also earning 100% on my money, whatever that does. The property goes up or down in value. It has nothing to do with how much equity is in that property, but I separate the equity to earn 100%, even up to 500% rates of return. This is how you can become your own banker. So when you understand sometimes it's wise to pay interest in order to earn higher interest, it's the same decision an employer makes when they pay an employee $50,000 a year in hopes that the employee makes them an extra $100,000. Would you hire an employee for $50,000 that made you an extra $100,000? I'll do that all day long. That's a 100% return on employment cost, or 100% return on equipment cost if you bought a widget machine for $20,000 and that widget machine made you an extra $100,000. That's a 500% return on equipment cost. Are you beginning to get it? So in my various books and educational videos, sometimes I'll talk about the three marvels of wealth accumulation. Number one is compound interest. And a lot of people think they have a handle on that, and they usually don't. But yeah, compound interest. But the second is tax-free compounding. This is what Rothschild said is the eighth wonder of the world, is tax-free accumulation of money compounding. But the third marvel, a lot of people don't understand, it's safe, positive leverage. The ability to own and control assets with very little or none of your money tied up or at risk in that asset. And that's where I've been able to become my own banker, pay a nominal interest rate and earn a higher interest rate, because this is what makes the world go round. This is the parable of the talents. And that's why the harshest words in that parable, thou wicked and slothful servant, I'm going to take it from you and give it to the one that has 10. You should have put your money at least in the bank with usury. Well, what are banks doing? They're paying interest and they're loaning it back and earning higher interest. We need to multiply our talents by doing it the right way. And so I hope that you're beginning to understand that you can actually own and loan on the same asset by becoming your own banker and understanding how money really works. So if this is tweaking or even piquing your interest into some ideas that you've thought about but you've never really understood it, I would recommend you watch this episode and also explore some of the many books and articles I've written about how to become your own banker. And then you can be empowered and move from just being a striver to a thriver, because you understand how money works and how it can benefit you the best.